Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to my editing process video. Disclaimer, I'm not suggesting that you edit your own videos exactly like this. There's no right way or anything. I'm still learning every day easier and faster and better ways to edit. As of this moment, this is how I edit, specifically wedding videos. I'm using this one as an example. The finished product will be uploaded soon after this video is posted. Let's get straight into it because I don't want this video to be even longer than I'm sure it already will be. The first thing that I do, usually the footage that I receive for these videos are shot really high quality, so the files are really huge, which can make scrolling through the timeline really difficult without it not being able to completely run most efficiently. So first we want to create proxies for the footage, which is a really easy thing, but it does take a lot of time. Basically, this just runs your footage through Media Encoder, and it says low quality, but it's not actually lower quality. It just compresses the files down so that you can actually scrub through your footage a lot faster. So after you create your project in Premiere, obviously, you're going to want to proxy the footage. I usually just have my computer run at night and just proxy all the footage so it's ready the next day. And we're really going step by step here. So you're going to import the footage, transitions, the LUTs, any of the music that you need, your split screens, your filters, etc., etc. Just have everything in there so you don't have to go digging for things later. I like my stuff really organized, possibly over organized. So I do it like this. I have a timeline with all of the footage imported just in order so that if I accidentally delete something, it can't be undone. I can just go back to that timeline. And then I will copy that timeline, paste it into my bin, and then rename it when I go through and get my selects. So I just call it the best footage timeline. Then I create another timeline with my selects, and then I select from there the best footage from my selects, basically, that I am sure I'm going to use in the video. And then I pick from my selects in this timeline and start creating the first rough edit. And then from each edit on, if I change anything, if I order the footage differently, if I change the music, if I change a filter or something, I'll create a new timeline and have that be edit 2, edit 3, edit 4, whatever. It's just easier for everybody, being more specific and being more organized. In that very first timeline, I do like to add an adjustment layer and add just whatever LUTs or filters that I know I'm going to apply so that it can see what the footage is going to look like. Add all of the music and audio as well, just to have all the necessary assets in every future timeline you create. This is also where I like to change the sequence settings from 60 frames per second to 30 frames per second. After changing sequence settings, I go to the editing window. It has everything I need. I don't know if this is the default setup on Premiere, but it has the effects panel, the essential graphics panel, and the Lumetri color, which is pretty much all that I need to use while I'm editing. As you can see on the top left square, it also has the effect controls, all audio, text preview, editing preview. That's all there as well. So once I open the editing window, I don't need to change it really. Lastly, I also add audio track mixer to add audio effects on a separate audio track for music needs under the window tab. And this is where I utilize the reverb effect that helps transition between songs during the video. Like I said before, I'll go through all the footage and pick out the best footage in that new best footage timeline, take my selects and delete anything that is absolutely useless. Otherwise, I will keep what can be used in case at the end of the timeline. And it's easier if you keep the footage in order and you scrub through it in order to remember where things are for later. After I have my selects, I usually listen to all the suggested music. Usually, obviously, you use the more sentimental songs that you know are going to have a big impact for the better footage that you have. That's just, almost like a rule of thumb. So you listen through all the suggested music, pick which order you might want to use them in, and just start editing with that. Your choice in music can be adjusted during the editing process, but a good guess at the beginning of editing will help down the line to avoid more editing, especially if you're editing to the beat, which is something I always like to do. It can be harder when you switch songs like halfway through editing or in a separate edit, which is unfortunately what I had to do for this video. I chose wrong. I picked a song that I ended up switching the first and second song. So it did make editing this a little bit harder because I had to go back and kind of re-edit to the beat because the songs were different BPMs, but you got to do what you got to do. But always use your intuition. My videographer gives me notes on which songs I should definitely be using. Just follow your heart. Once you have a good idea of what songs you're going to be using in which order, start creating a video. Keeping in mind your time limit. If you don't have a time limit, even better. Usually for the clients that we get, their videos should be between 7 to 10 minutes, and that is specified before I start editing editing. So now just start editing. Editing to the beat of the music is a helpful indicator for how long your clips should be. If there's an exceptionally emotional moment that you want to include, it's good angle, good lighting, whatever. Definitely hold on that moment for as long as you deem necessary and don't cut it off just because the music is telling you to. But keeping that in mind, cutting on beat is usually more impactful. I don't know, you can get more into a rhythm, not only editing, but obviously when you're watching it back, when clients are watching it, it flows more smoothly. For wedding videos especially, I do like to slow down all of the footage I'm using to about 60%. I also like to use markers on the timeline to note where transitions or split screens should be used. I don't do them right away, obviously, because I could change the footage out and I would have put in all that work for no reason. So I think it's easier to just get a timeline together, get a grander picture of things before you start putting in effects or transitions, just because you don't know exactly what it's going to look like yet. And we want to keep things tight, keep it optimal. So don't waste your time until you know that's going to be your timeline, that's going to be your video, and you just make things easier on yourself. To be honest though, the only effects that I use are pretty much just crop, roughen, and warp stabilizer under the effects panel, along with basic cross dissolve, and then the three audio transitions just make editing easier and faster for me. Usually I personally don't like using too many effects, but you'll see there's some transitions in this video that I wanted to try out that my videographer gave me. So, we're always learning and adapting here. After you have a rough edit, this is also where you would need to edit any audio. In this case, and in most cases for wedding videos that in my experience so far, the music that you do choose to use from the client's list, usually I'll download like an instrumental version to put underneath any dialogue audio like speeches or wedding vows or anything that you have that is live audio from the event, because obviously the words of the song are going to distract from the main dialogue that you're trying to include. So by now you should be able to at least begin to finalize audio and video and take note where you may need to use a warp stabilizer effect. If you've slowed down your footage anywhere below 100% speed like I did, you'll need to nest each clip into its own sequence, and this will create the clip's own timeline in your bin, which I would advise you label in case you need to undo it. And just so, if you nest a bunch of sequences, you'll get lost in which one is which footage. Like I said, over-organize, label everything, because warp stabilizer is like a 50-50, maybe even less than that. It's not a great editing tool, but it is pretty quick and easy if something really doesn't look right or you just want to smooth something out. This is where you would add in all of your effects once you're beginning to finalize, and any transitions, split screens, whatever. And finally, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the color correcting should be last but not least. So like I said at the beginning, I add an adjustment layer with a LUT that we use on wedding footage. There are many clips where further color correcting is needed. I'll click on the original clip that needs fixing and just adjust from there to make all the footage in that sequence look at least a little bit better. When you're color correcting, you want to try to make the footage at least not jarring to look at between cuts. Not that you can make, one setting look like another, especially as you can see the difference between the footage when they're standing outside versus in the church is very different. The footage outside, obviously you get a bluer tint because of daylight, and inside the church is very yellow with all of the lights. Just trying to make it less jarring when you cut between those clips as best as you can. This was my first time doing this. Normally I would have put this responsibility on my videographer who finalizes the edits, but he asked me to do the color correcting for this project, so obviously I gave it a shot, and this is how it turned out. I found that the auto button under the basic correction section is usually pretty good at giving a base color correction, but I would definitely not rely on it fully, especially in the church and the footage later at the reception with the purple lights. It totally was oversaturating the footage, so take that into account. Don't rely on the auto correction. After I've done all of this, I will watch and rewatch and tweak anything that may need tweaking and freak out over the finished product, and rewatch again and again until I decide nothing more can be done and I hand it over to another editor. It's always good to get fresh eyes on something if you can. If you're getting frustrated, you can take a break, come back to it the next day or a few hours later if you have the time. If you're an editor, you kind of just have an intuition for this stuff. And I'll be honest, this wedding video, my spidey senses weren't really tingling with this wedding video. I don't know how else to describe it, but it just wasn't coming as naturally to me what I should be doing, what footage I should be placing where, which transition to use. And like I said, I messed up with the audio and had to switch the songs halfway through my edit. So that added on more time to my editing process. But, I tried my best. That's all anyone can ask for. So this is my wedding video editing process. Whew. And like I said, again, the finished product will be up on my YouTube channel. I've been done with this project for, a couple weeks already. So you can see what all the hard work that went into editing this actually turned out to look like. If it's not up yet and you're watching this, you can watch other finished products that I've made. They're up on my website, which is in the description box below under the editing tab of my website. So go ahead and check that out. I hope you enjoyed the little glimpse into my work. This is how I work. This is my job. If anyone has any comments, advice, questions, a way to do something easier than you saw me doing it here, I would love to hear it. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Have a great day. See ya.